Streebo Productions.
What's up, guys? Welcome back. Streebo here from MVP and Mutantville.com. I'm going to do my best to give you a spoiler-free review for A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, I went to check out the Nightmare on Elm Street remake at the midnight showing this past Thursday. It's actually a few days later, as I had to actually think about the movie for a little bit. Nightmare on Elm Street is a series that's really close to my heart. When I was growing up, I was never allowed to actually watch horror films, but I learned about them vicariously. I lived through them vicariously. I remember when the series originally started and the Nightmare on Elm Street movies were coming out, you know, almost one a year through the mid and late 80s. My friends would come to school and they would talk about all the sequences that happened. You know, it's a guy with this nasty sweater and these knives and stuff, and the way that they talked about Freddy was actually very reminiscent of the way the kids in the movie talked about him when they were trying to, you know, figure out what was going on with him. There was always, everybody would always talk about certain kill sequences, you know, as each movie went on. You know, with the first one, it was always, yeah, I don't want to get too much into specifics, but you know, there are key sequences that they would always talk about. You know, he's chasing her through a boiler room, or this guy gets sucked into the bed and all this blood comes out, or she's running up the stairs and the steps turn into gooey blood and she can't go anywhere. And you know, I lived those experiences vicariously, though I was never able to see the movie. And because of that, you know, Freddy was just this larger than life boogeyman to me, and it was something that really at the time stood apart from the pack. The reason that I mention that is because I just want to just point out, you know, just how groundbreaking that it was at the time with Wes Craven's original idea of, you know, our nightmares, our dreams being able to kill us, and the way that he kind of constructed Freddy and how he was so different from everybody else at the time. When there was this big slasher boom going on, though it had kind of tapered down at that point. Pretty much all the other slashers out there were the garden variety guy in some kind of mask with some kind of sharp implement that they were killing people with. You know, it was usually something they picked up, a garden tool, or you know, or a weapon of some type. But with Freddy, he was different. He didn't just have a mask. He was, you know, scarred and disfigured, and he had these, you know, long knives on his hand, that claw thing going on. And that did make him so different. It really made him seem like something out of a dream, out of a nightmare. And I remember Wes Craven saying that he put him in a red and green sweater because red and green together are like the hardest colors to process for the human mind. So he just did everything he could to make this guy just uber creepy and make him seem like he's something out of a nightmare. And I actually had dreams about Freddy after only having seen just pictures of him and hearing all these crazy stories about him. I actually had crazy nightmares where he was coming to get me as a kid, and I'd never even seen the movie. So fast forward, it's 2010, and I've gone to see Samuel Bayer's remake. He is the director. And for those of you that don't know, Nightmare on Elm Street basically tells the story of a group of kids in Springwood that are being terrorized by a guy that known as Freddy, who's trying to kill them in their dreams. That's, you know, basically it. They do have a Nancy character in this movie. Before I get going too far, I just want to say, I mentioned the early one. I mentioned the original Wes Craven's version, but at the same time, I'm trying to give you, you know, an impartial review. If you look back at all my reviews, I do review remakes. I judge them on their own merit as their own, you know, individual works, if you will. So I'm going to try to do this without comparing it to Wes Craven's original, but this film didn't work for me, so inevitably I'm probably going to make some comparisons as this goes on. But anyway, Basic plot: teens being terrorized in their dreams. I thought the opening sequence kill was cool. I've heard some people say that it wasn't, or that it was too, I don't know, too obvious. But I liked it. I thought, okay, well, this is off to a good start. The movie is slick and glossy. It looks good. There are some nice, you know, nightmare sequences. Okay, but really, the things that worked the most was everything that was lifted from Wes Craven's movie and kind of dropped into this. And they're lifted in a manner much like the kids that I grew up with talking on the playground, where they would just talk about the sequences and not mention the plot itself. It was, there's a lot of blood, gooey steps, you know, a girl gets thrown around against the ceiling, that kind of thing. It's like those little sequences were just dropped in, and as they wrote out their plot for this movie in the script, they thought, okay, well, here it's time, let's put this kill here, and this one here, and this one here, and this one here. So this movie is not exactly a remake in a sense, in that it follows the strict plot of the original. Yes, it does have teens in it that are being terrorized by Freddy. Yes, they do try to find out why. Yes, you know, their parents, you know this from the trailer, yes, their parents did hunt him down and burn him alive, you know, for his transgressive actions, and he is coming back to exact revenge. But the flow of events is different. There's actually a little bit of a mystery where the teens, Nancy and her buddy, the sleepy-eyed guy, try to figure out, you know, why exactly Freddy is hunting them, what happened in the past, you know, what that would bring him back seeking revenge, and you know, how they can kind of fight against him. So there's a little bit of a mystery there. Started strong. The opening sequence is original and unique to this movie. The first kill is, but then they kind of pick up with the character of Chris, the blonde-headed girl, who is basically an analog for the Tina character in the original movie, and they follow her for a good bit. And I think this was a mistake, because later they pick up with Nancy, but by the time you pick up with Nancy, we've gone through 20 or so minutes where we never see Nancy, where she's just not there. She's not a part of the movie. So when she comes in, it's almost like, oh, now we're going to follow this secondary character. I think that was a script mistake. The script was just really bad. All the characters were very, very one-dimensional. I did think that the character of Nancy was a little bit more three-dimensional than the others, because she was she's an artist in this, and she's shown working in her bedroom, you know, painting and drawing and that kind of stuff. And I thought that gave her a little bit of a dimension to her, but I don't know. So I kind of liked her character. All the rest were really flat, but even with her, I don't know, she has this affectation where she kind of speaks like with her teeth clenched the whole time, is what it sounds like, and it was almost hard to understand her sometimes. It sounded like she had a speech impediment or something, because she's always talking like this. And I don't know, it just drove me crazy. The movie doesn't really, I didn't think it did a good job of creating an atmosphere. I don't know. It's so glossy. The things that look the best, that work the best, were moments picked up from Craven's movie. Okay, so when they happen, you're not too surprised by them. The movie, it kind of over relies on jump scares to an extent, where these kids are trying to stay awake, and they start having these micro naps, is what they call them in the movie, while they're awake, where they start dreaming while they're awake, so that they can, you know, have these nightmarish encounters anywhere they go. But those sequences, that dream reality doesn't blend into their reality in the way that it did in Craven's film. It just kind of, it jumps into their reality. Okay, there's just constant boo scares, where as soon as you realize, which is usually pretty obvious when they're falling asleep, as soon as you realize they're falling asleep, you can be guaranteed that something is gonna wah like that, and it's really just lame. There's always going to be something that's going to be jumping out and going whoa, and they weren't set up really well at all. I thought some of the early sequences were nice, but then they just tapered off.